putting that energy into the soul through the meditation is a great entry point. But where we want to arrive at is to have that soulful awareness throughout the entire day. And so you really know that you're at that place of soulful awareness when situations are speaking to you, where you're really hearing those calls to bring forward your highest possible self into one moment, versus just becoming an unconscious prisoner to pattern and habit. Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, I'm David, a sniper turned meditator and yoga. I'm also the director of Kailash Ashram, a traditional meditation and yoga retreat where we love to share an inspiring, heartfelt, soulful message to inspire you to practice meditation and yoga every day. This video is a live recording of our weekly sharing where we tackle different topics that our ashram members submit for discussion. Tonight's theme is all about getting your priorities in order. I had the good fortune to recently participate in an ancient shamanic retreat, which is a bit different from the yogic and meditation tradition, but it taught me so much about that connection to my soul and how to get my priorities in order, to get my life in order, to make sure that the soul is beyond those lower natures. If this is useful content, consider subscribing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've lived about 5 lifetimes in the last 2 weeks. So there's quite a lot to draw upon in terms of sharing and you know, providing that inspiration to keep at this game of soul-based consciousness. Something that's been really quite nice to come out of the previous retreat that I was on was a re-establishment of priority. And it really showed me how, well, this retreat and the various stages of this retreat revealed to me just how sneaky the unconscious patterns are. So the structure for the beautiful retreat we went through, each ceremony, we did 3 ceremonies, and each one of those was dedicated to a different shamanic world. Now these translate to the past or the underworld, the present or this realm, and then the beyond, the ascension, wherever we're going after this place. So you can see that this is you know, quite a reasonable parallel to the yogic view of past being, you know, the feminine or the left channel, future being the right channel, and that the gateway to transcendence is in this present realm. And so the shamanic ritual that we went through teases out of each of those different areas of one's existence, maybe those areas that are holding you or holding me certainly back from living an even more peaceful life. You know, I'd like to think that I'm leading a lot more peaceful life compared to where I used to. What the upper limit on that is, who knows? So some of the insight that got really sort of dredged up for me was just how easily it can be to mistake the voice of the soul with overactive parts of the energetic system that may not actually be that soul. And so the priorities, what I'm going to take you through is a bit of a rundown of what those priorities or what it might look like to have the priorities out of whack, even subtly. You know, this game of increasing our consciousness and working towards, you know, jivan mukti or freedom from suffering whilst we're in body here on earth. That game of life requires, you know, at first, maybe like the Sculptor, you know, some really big tools to chip away large chunks of rock. You know, like that, the Sculptor starts with the big block and whacks away the big chunks and quite dramatically so, maybe even drilling in certain moments and weakening the block of marble strategically to bring pieces away. And then increasingly as the process of carving goes on, finer and finer tools are used. Now, those finer tools also need to be sharp, and they need to be hit with more precision. And so, for many who are exposed to the practices and the nice run through of the virtues of the soul and the chakras and all of that knowledge on the soul retreat, there might be some really big kind of banging and like big chunks leaving. There you go, army, that's like half the block gone, or, this unhelpful relationship or this way of relating myself, that goes. But the work doesn't stop. Some beings, maybe Swami Gs of this world, are in a polishing operation. They've got the finest grit sandpaper, and they're getting the buffing cloth out and just really breathing on the sculpture. Realistically, I think I'm at that stage where I don't need the jackhammer anymore, but there is still some real, really, really nice bits of carving of my personality going on. This journey of self-cultivation is not a steady state or a fixed, it's not arrival at a fixed outcome. My belief is that, you can spend your whole life carving and probably still have room to keep going. I don't believe in the path of just laying down the tools and letting oneself be an uncarved block. I don't also believe that the correct approach is to obsessively fuss over the details constantly. But every so often, some work needs to happen. And I certainly know that in my own journey. I believe that this echoes something that I've heard Swami G talk about, which was that on his journey, I heard him share that. So what Swami G shared is that during one of his shibirs, is after 6 months of out there doing big discourses, and I'm talking like he's doing 200,000 people at once at like one of these mega shibirs in 2004, like big event, like broadcasting massive amount of energy. He was saying that the nature of that work is that it does inflate one's ego. And so that the only thing that you can really do to stop that excessive fire from building up within is to focus on your own practice. And so at that stage, he was saying, I need to take 6 months and get away from all of this. Like 6 months, no teaching, no sharing. I'm just in isolation, or I'm away from that stage. And so for me on my journey, Rajni and I host our retreat once a month, which is probably the upper limit of the amount of retreats that we can really do without it, inflating those parts of ourself too. And so, what is it that I do to help my own spiritual growth and refill that cup? Well, the deep work with the shamanic tradition has been a real godsend over the years to give me the opportunity to participate in a retreat, but also to serve that retreat. So we are the space, and we're a space holder during the retreat. So we ensure that people are, in a safe container whilst they're experiencing that traditional shamanic work. My own sadhana is a really important thing. Also, going and studying under my teachers, and I've got the good fortune to be going overseas at the end of the year to study under Sundarnath. So, progressing and developing my studies is super, super important. So when this polishing operation or the finer carving comes out, the things that tend to get revealed to me are subtle teachings. They're not as maybe like the big separation from the army that I've shared about quite a few times. That was a really massive realization, and that came just through the meditation a couple of weeks after that, and so that was quite a dramatic life change. The big shift to move out to the Grampians, the big shift to start an ashram, the big shift to there were a lot of those. They can be bloody emotionally exhausting. But now the teachings, the subtle corrections are still coming through. So something that I witnessed, maybe in terms of re-establishing the priority, was witnessing one of those old patterns of mine, which was an excessive fire element or ego and work ethic. I'm not happy unless I'm working hard. So, the foot coming off the accelerator terrified me. In fact, I felt for many years that if my foot was on the accelerator, then I could, it was like an antidote to my anxiety or something like that. If I was working hard, well, I couldn't be slacking off. So it just meant that, that's great. Like work. Now, well, what happens if one continually pours gasoline upon the fire? You can kid yourself and think that it's burning bright, but it's gasoline, it's petrol, it's a flammable, combustible material that's being thrown on every so often. Is there a good coal for cooking? And well, what does it take to get a good coal to cook on a campfire? One needs to put good dried hardwood, dense old growth logs onto the fire, and then that will coal. And then warm, hot coals is fantastic for cooking and also keeping you warm. So Agni, or you're in a fire, is actually, refers to coal, and that's the sort of inner flame that we want to cultivate, not that sort of explosive fire element. Now, simple thing for me, coffee. It's turbocharged rocket fuel that goes onto the fire, but it's combustible, and it gives you a six hour flash and then a couple of hour crash, and it isn't long-term sustainable. It hasn't been for me anyway. And so I noticed, after the birth of little Uddy, under an increased load of sleeplessness and a little bit of stress, resorting back to that daily cup of coffee. And so, even the substances we consume can then exacerbate some of the underlying imbalances. So I thought, for the last couple of weeks, oh man, I'm really overdoing the coffee lately. Mostly like one per day is kind of overdoing it for me. I'm kind of living dangerously now with one a day. I'm like, oh God, that's a lot of coffee for me. I used to drink gallons of the stuff. What I learned on the Wuma Retreat, so working with the shamanic tradition in prolonged periods, I'm talking like 12, 14 hour meditations of more introspective space, some conversations in there, but a lot of time to look within and spend the whole night sitting there really kind of coming to terms with some of the inner process, was that the old work ethic, the old fire element had actually been the cause. The coffee was a symptom. The overactive mind and the pushing nature was the symptom, or was the cause rather. And so coffee was manifesting as a symptom to jack the energy up to get a bit of stuff done. So upon realizing this, it's like, great, well then what does it look like to shift the priority away from an overactive fire element? Okay, well, we've got this great thing where we've got a practice that takes us to the soul. So I already know what the answer is. More soulfulness. If I had an overactive second chakra, which might be that, I'm out there enjoying life and playing and not taking things so seriously, well, where am I going to turn to? If you know anything about me or Rajni, more time with the soul. If it's an indulgence of my own emotional state, and riding the roller coaster of my emotions, what am I going to be suggesting that we go towards? Boom, back here to the soul. So practically, what does it look like in this sort of situation for me to bring the soul into the equation? Well, at the outset, I know that the virtue of the Manipura chakra that is in alignment with me is satisfaction and contentment. Hidden in some of the advice that's been given to me by Sundarnath over the years, when I asked about hot showers or cold showers, and he tells me lukewarm showers. When I tell him that I hurt my knee going out rock climbing, he tells me gentle strolling. I know that if I'm leaning in towards the more extreme aspects of my personality, running, rushing, pushing, that really that's coming from a place that has little satisfaction. And so, when the coals are burning right, satisfaction translates to a more purposeful, mindful me. Now, that might be simply noticed in getting up from the desk and rushing to make a cup of tea to have a break. And it's like, power walking 7 meters from the desk to the kettle and catching oneself going, okay, here I am rushing. So the soulful awareness that's brought into those moments is just a simple witnessing. And then the choice to engage in the way that one knows is right for them. Now, if I am frantically disassembling something in the garden and it needs a lot of gusto and big heaving effort, that is a correct place to put in the big amount of effort in that physical gesture. Making a cup of tea, on the other hand, is something that can be done with minimal effort and from a relaxed place. And so simply by being attentive to one's body and one's behavior in space, the regulation of those elemental imbalances begins to occur quite naturally. And so, it took that deeper state of meditation to realize, like, I'm doing that pushing thing. And okay, I looked at it instead of looking away from it and drinking a cup of coffee. I'm like, okay, here's a week off the black stuff. Let me look at it. Let me look at the fatigue surfacing. Let me look at the impulses driving for an addiction, the old habit of work hard addiction. Okay, how am I going to show up? What am I going to meet these with? Am I going to meet it with equanimity? The more that I unpacked this, the more that I began to realize that it had actually caught on in quite an insidious way inside of my daily routine. So my action in the world, what I was tending to, was revealing to me where I was putting my priority. So I'd been waking up early and doing my practice and then convincing myself that I get my best work done before anyone else gets up. I'm super productive in the mornings. So that's me like jumping straight at the computer at like 6 o'clock and powering through about till 11 o'clock, doing all the computer-based stuff. And what I was inadvertently saying was that I wake up and then I'm prioritizing work. And is that actually the right thing for me to be prioritizing? Well, life is a choice. Now, everything comes at a consequence. If one wakes up and prioritizes a sadhana that is at their soul, well, then that's what we are saying to ourselves is, this is what I elevate. This is the most important thing for me to start my day. I'm going to tend to the most important things. So with my limited resource of time, I will make sure that I tick off the big picture things that are super, super important. So simply by becoming a workaholic again, I was undermining my own relationship with my soul. And so a little bit of a correction operation has occurred where I'm like, oh, wow, what if I keep work hours? Wow, crazy. Brilliant idea. What if I start work at 9 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, even though I'm productive at 6? What if the work component of my day is relegated to a lower place than the other centers? Okay, well, what would I be doing? If I'm putting my work up here, then there's no space for heart, which is connection to family. There's no space for creative expression for the sake of it, and there's no place for learning. It's all about work. So if I pull the Manipura back down and go, you deserve to be in my belly, not ruling the roost. What does that tangibly look like in the morning? Oh, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything that resembles work until I've addressed some family issues, I've found some creative self-expression, and I've potentially learned something or engaged my buddhi, my intellect, my discriminating intellect into something that is beneficial for me. And so this is how the practice of the soul begins to regulate my life. And the invitation is there for you to witness if there has been some big sort of breaking off of the chunks and, things are carving in a new direction. It's fantastic work. But what does it look like when we get the next set of chisels, the smaller chisels out instead of the big hammers? And what do those little cleanup operations or what do the polishing operations look like? I'm not working for my ego. The work is still there to serve. It's good work. I love it. But it's coming at the cost of some other part of my life. Okay, well, how do we shift that? Simply by looking carefully at the places that we spend our attention. Do I take that time off to engage for the sake of family connection? Do I take that time off for me to create without agenda? And, to be honest, looking in the mirror, those had been falling by the wayside. So, bit by bit, the old patterns that we might think we're done with can sort of come out of left field and start gripping at us from our peripheral vision. Maybe we looked at them and go, great, I've got this workaholic nature. Cool, I'm going to crack on with life. And then before you know it, something's got a hold of your jumper. You're like, wait a second, where was that? Oh, here it is. It was that part of me that can be indulged. Now, in years gone by, I would have then proceeded to chastise myself. Oh no, I've fallen into that thing again. Oh dear, oh, cat of nine tails, and start flagellating myself. Oh, you're unworthy for, getting caught by that old pattern. And that just adds more. It's more of an ego trip than anything else. It doesn't result in a better outcome. I can guarantee you that. So simply by witnessing that pattern emerge, then the next thing that one needs to do is reorient to those positive virtues and just carry forward. There's no big secret to this. Witnessing the thing is 90% of the battle, and then you already know what to do. Keep going forward. Oops, I did that thing where I don't speak about my emotions again. All right, well, this afternoon I'm going to have a share about my emotions. Oops, I did that thing again where I don't have any fun. Okay, here I go again. I will endeavor to bring in a little bit more fun. And little bit by little bit, we walk our way towards that life of peace. I was really heavily informed by our 16-year-old Rishan's growth in his reverse parking today. And his secret to the success of reverse parking was watching Rajni, who is also learning to reverse park. His secret, after really kind of flustering himself the first couple of goes at it, recently we had a go and Rajni was driving and reverse parked really well, and Rishan was in the back seat and he was taking notes on how mum was doing it. So sometimes all we need is that witness of another person who's conquering their struggle or going through their triumph over a difficult situation. And certainly for me, the experience with the Wuma Retreat, with that deep healing space that Rodolfo and I create, to witness other people triumph over their patterns and their adversity, inspires and gives insight into me becoming a better me. And so this is what I really mean by the guru being your soul, that teaching element lives within you, and you can elicit that teaching from any person that you look at. It's kind of vicarious learning, as many of you I'm sure would have experienced on the soul retreat. Simply watching other people go through catharsis and healing can inform you about your own journey and give you the new ways of looking at the situations that might have pulled you down. So I really hope that you can introspect this week and sit down and really look at where you spend your time. That can be a great indicator on a bit more of a truthful appraisal of what are your priorities. Are you putting the time into those things that are actually important for you? Or are you just saying the things? And it's quite easy. Talk's cheap. It's easy to say the talk. It's another thing to show up and invest the time in those energy centers that you wish to cultivate. And there's no good or bad. I mean, it's just if one area has been a little bit kind of contracted, invest a little bit more time and it will blossom and flower. And then when it gets a little bit overgrown, maybe pare it back and certainly, don't put it all in one other than even with this stuff with the soul, putting that energy into the soul through the meditation is a great entry point. But where we want to arrive at is to have that soulful awareness throughout the entire day. And so you really know that you're at that place of soulful awareness when situations are speaking to you, where you're really hearing those calls to bring forward your highest possible self into one moment, versus just becoming an unconscious prisoner to pattern and habit. So I pray that you have a week where that soul is turbocharged. For some of you who are joining us out here at the Members Retreat, I really, really do look forward to seeing you out here. It's going to be awesome to have a really beautiful weekend together. Still plenty of room if anyone else wants to jump on board. And similarly, heaps of room on retreats coming up over the spring and summer, both for new students as well as volunteers, as well as returning students. So I thank you for your attention this evening. We'll get set for a lovely meditation, and trust that you have a beautiful week. Raj, well, thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's sharing. If you'd like to learn more about the meditation practice that we share at our ashram, as well as more information about the retreats that we run every single month, simply check out the description below. If this content's been useful for you, whack that thumbs up button and be sure to subscribe. Jai Atmeshwar, which means victory to your soul as divine, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.